Well, well, well.
Good morning, Dr. Brad.
Kurt Doolittle, we meet again.
Very fond of your jacket and tie color scheme this morning.
You're very kind. As usual. Not that I expect it, because that would be too much. Now, hang on. We're going to work on lying some more.
I hope so, because I feel like an idiot this morning.
Why is that?
I don't know.
I assure you, you're not an idiot this morning or yesterday morning, too.
Hmm.
We're in episode 2060, by the way, everybody. You know what to do. Hit that
I think
button.
not. I think this is 2062.
Really? All right. I'll call it 2062 just to make you feel
Oh,
smart.
let's be sure. Yes, this is 2062.
All right. Well, I'm just mislabeling them all.
Well, you weren't mislabeling. I forgot to post a couple things. So,
Is that how it is? All right.
yeah. Yeah.
That's all right.
You
So
ever
here
wake up in the morning, it's like, la, your brain is singing, la, 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 daisies, hillsides and waterfalls.
That's nice.
Yeah, and it doesn't want. It's like, no, you can go do whatever you want today, but I'm your brain, and I'm going to have a vacation day, and I feel like that's what I woke up with this morning. I'm trying to encourage it with caffeine and dark chocolate. We'll see.
But Spurs, huh? Encouraging is interesting terminology for that. Was going to say something about cocaine because I'm pretty sure it will help.
No,
Just an idea, man.
it's tough. Well, because it was man, when I was in college in the late '70s, early '80s, cocaine was like causing drop people to drop out. Like it was like a scythe.
Really?
It was like a plague. I mean,
Wow.
everybody. But I and in the early '80s when I started working full time, my boss she got addicted and dropped out. I mean, because it was very much a fashion club yuppie drug, right? But man, I remember, and so I'm trying it, and I'm like, I'm not really a fan of drugs, but I'll yield to peer pressure once in a while, right? I get there were two basic problems. One which is holy shit, this is way too good. I can get addicted to this overnight. That was my reaction. But oh no. My second reaction was the day after I could kill somebody without thinking about it. I don't know what it's doing to me,
That's not good.
but whatever it is, the day after
The shadow of it. It's the shadow
is
of it.
is not good. So it made me aggressive and violent, and I'm like, I don't need that. I grew up with that. I don't want any of that at all.
That's right. That's right.
So yeah, but it was just the truth is the that whole period post 79, right? I mean, it really starts with Star Wars, but the post 78, 79, the Reagan election, the the sort of getting over the Vietnam thing,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that was a really nice time. Music was fun again, was turning good again. But this and Coke was when it was like before that, it was like you either had beer or pot, and the adventurous people had acid, and the really fucked up people had heroin.
Yes.
But that was it. I mean, that's all there was, right? And and so you were in the beer and occasional pot group, right? I mean, it's just like this spectrum. And of course, I'm not in the acid or heroin group, of course, and it's just like way out of my sort of comfort zone. But I don't know if it was like the class of people I was with, but man, the number of people dropped out of school from cocaine, it was
Huh.
unbelievable. One of my best friends,
Hmm.
my roommate, had nervous breakdown.
Wow.
So I was like, Jesus Christ, what
A
the
battlefield.
and then AIDS started up. Before then, it was like, what's going to happen, right? I mean, you can sleep around all you want, and you can get a shot, right? I mean, we didn't even worry about condoms, really. I mean, uh, so and then all of a sudden, it's like you can die. What?
Wait, this is getting serious now.
So it's like, that was a very changeover period. At least for me, it was very. I didn't. You went from, sex in the back of a car in the woods with your girlfriend on a Friday night, with 20 of your other friends doing the same fucking thing, right? To college was an opportunity for even more. To holy shit, what the hell's going on between cocaine and AIDS? I mean, this is not okay.
The processing power is too great. Its requirement was too great.
And now look at kids. I mean, we bring this up all the time. You look at the dating market, or even the trying to be, imagine what it's like to be a teenager now. It's fucking horrible. And they don't know it's horrible because they don't know anything else.
It's normal.
All right. Horrible is normal for them. Crazy. I was talking to I have some cute little old ladies here that I flirt with, and they really are fun, right? So two of these ladies are in their 90s. So I get up this morning, I go out to get my supplies for our conversation. All right. And I go out and get supplies, and they're sitting there doing their after taking a break from doing their walk, and they're in their 90s, and they're just as they're not physically strong, but they're just as present as you and I. And they're like, "How do we get from us to now in that much time?" Doesn't make any sense. Well, it actually does make sense, and if you understand it, it isn't funny anymore. But
right,
yeah, I'm having a little chit chat with some feminists with a PhD in sociology, and she's from Essex University, which is like the UK's version of trying to make a new community college so that the underclass can get a degree. Right? I shouldn't say that. I'm going to piss somebody off, but Essex is. It's not very. It's okay, right? And so, but I mean, you look at what they advertise, and it's the complete woke program. And so I'm going through this. So she's got a PhD, and she's publishing stuff. You understand is that of course I'm come up through economics. So economics tells you that anything you think is probably wrong.
Right.
Almost anything you think is probably wrong, because the data things work counterintuitively as they scale, right? Because you get the equilibrium. And so you have all these, and so the second thing is, like, I've hired a lot of marketers and data analysts, right, and librarians too, right, because they categorize things. And of course, once you get into search engines and anything like that, or sentiment weighting or interpretation of customer feedback in text, you get all this AI shit going on. So, I mean, I've been doing this for a career, right? I mean, growing up with the science of. So, most marketers, I mean, their understanding of statistics is pretty good. All right. Not because they need to be great statisticians, but because anything other than a single regression analysis turns out to be questionable. And so instead, what you want is competing measurements of single regressions, right? You don't want to over test your data. And so this woman's giving me crap about this. I'm like, and I'm sort of going back and forth, and she's doing all the GSSRM nonsense, right?
Okay.
And I read her PhD thesis last night and a couple of papers she's written. They wouldn't get by a first-year marketing intern, more or less, a first-year data scientist. And any economist with any knowledge of behavioral economics would see it as clown world. Because why? Because it's made of survey data that she says she performs factor analysis on. And I'm like, well, survey data from 40 self-selected people who got money to go for your study. It's just meaning you're constructing the outcome, right? Then when she comes to the interpretation, she does subjective interpretation of the data using relativism. And I'm like, this is just bullshit, right? This isn't science. This is justification.
It's mathiness.
Well, I mean, well, she doesn't get far enough to be mathy. I mean, it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, well, I guess you could categorize it
It's scientism.
as scientism. Yeah, yeah. And so it just really has no understanding. So I said, well, I mean, obvious things. I could put down like 5 things that are obviously wrong with her work. And then and I close with, find me a human difference that isn't originate in sex differences. You won't find it. Right? I mean, just aren't any. Right? I mean, that you might say, well, Kurt, well, there's the variations that we have in the pre, during, and post selection of data, which we call personality traits. Well, those I said actually they vary by. I mean, they vary by sex. That's how, are they big? Well, of course not. Right? If they were big, we wouldn't be able to work together. They're over. What they are is they exist. They're substantive, but they're overcomable, right? By reciprocity. If they were so large that they couldn't be overcome by reciprocity, the difference would be too large. It's like, duh. I mean, I can't, but once you've got this feminist oppression narrative in your head, right? You just jump to the conclusion that it's true. And I just like, it goes to the point of, can you cite a paper? I'm like, I don't think you understand. You cite hundreds of papers, right? You look at my reading list, right? I mean, it's a fucking 25 pages long, right? You don't cite that. What you do is you say the overwhelming. This is what you do in any science, right? You don't take any given.
That's right. It's not a one study thing.
Any given study or any set of studies. You say, what's the entire set of studies say, and what's survived over the time period, and of those things that survive, what's the commonality or the coherence between them,
right? And
that's the first cause that's underneath it. And so, but it's like if you want to go out and find science to confirm your selection by your priors, you can find that, especially in the least replicable bullshit we have, which is social science. I'm like, if you conduct a survey, that's why economists were like, we want data that was not collected intentionally, right? Data that was
collected.
It collected for some other purpose, and then want another data set that's collected for some other. We want to get every data set that's collected for some purpose. We want to find what the statistical relation of some set of axes is in each one. We want to see across these data sets what survives, because the truth is it's most human differences are quite small, but they aren't small when there's millions of people involved, because people go a certain way or the other. Right. And so when we're talking about politics, this woman's doing stuff like, well, women said this and whatever, and therefore that's only, and I'm like, no, look, dude, we have semantic data on how women and men speak. It's been known for centuries how women and men write differently. Right. You can tell a female writer from a male writer. Right? You could, I mean, if a woman writes a page and a man writes a page on the same subject, you can tell the sex of the author. Now, there's some women who are really close to good, right? And you might take a little more, I mean, really close to male. I mean, it might take a little more thought to discover that this particular woman, in other words, the fact that you're finding it more accessible is because she's female. And the male is less accessible because it's dependent on the presumption of more systemic relations in you, where she's more. I mean, it's like when I studied the foundations of math, I found out that women were actually better at stating them because men just presumed it was obvious. Well, it's the same shit I do. I presume shit's obvious, right? And so, so you find these similarities, but the same thing is true in every single verbal expression. I mean, we make fun of Naxalt, Axalt, distribution problems, right? All we make fun of the failure of empathizing to scale, or the fact that whether something's desirable by empathic means doesn't mean it's possible by systemic means, right? We run into this shit all the time. But she didn't quote any of that research, and there's volumes of it. Instead, she quotes other surveys. I mean, you're just generating your same. This is how the postmodern Marxist postmodernists work, right? They create they fund a bunch of shit research, and then they keep referencing the shit research, but it's just production of confirming the self confirmatory of their theories. Did I go off on too much of a rant there?
No, we call that a circle jerk where I come from.
Yeah, no, that's a circle jerk. What you're trying to do is say, what theory can I falsify?
Okay.
Anyway, so I'm just like, and my point here is that you actually can't reason with an empath, an intuitionistic mind, because they will forever, what we call moving goalposts, but they will forever move to some emotional means of attacking you or your argument or whatever. Like this woman is saying, I'm not competent to comment on this subject because there are marketing. There are holes in my website waiting for marketing copy. I'm like, what? How the fuck does that relate? I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I built a lot of websites for a lot of companies. There's nothing strange about leaving marketing holes, holes for marketing copy. Now, most of the time, if you have a release procedure, right, that those pages with holes aren't published until they're ready. But we don't have. We're just a volunteer organization, so you publish the page immediately, and then you fill the copy in as you get along. But this is the economics of producing content. So I'm always like, what does that have to do? And then she goes down the credentialist thing, which I had to throw back at her, and it's like, look, in my generation, me, Gates, Jobs, everyone like us, the money was out there to take. Why would I choose to go into the academy and go through all this politics and cost when it was out there's all this fucking money to be made if you had half a brain? So we all went out and we did these things. Gates dropped. I mean, there's no evidence that the college degree is better. Completing a college degree is a competitor to people who accomplish in real life. I'm trying to think of that guy who does so much of the world's oil business. Can't remember his name. Go to college. He started buying oil. I mean, it's just like some of us don't need the credentials, right? I mean, we don't. And for me, look at my work. You think I could get that through a dissertation committee? No way. No, nobody even. I'd get kicked out of school for bringing it up.
Yeah.
I could have benefited from the formal education process. I could have benefited from it as a writer, right? But I still think that what it teaches you is largely not good. It's almost more important who was your advisor on your PhD than anything. That actually matters. Yeah. Not your PhD. I mean, certain things. I mean, obviously, in your business, it matters because there's a minimum bar for you to not kill people, right? I mean, yes. Although every once in a while, somebody goes out and they pull off being a doctor for 10 years by faking. I'm like, how the fuck did that happen?
That is quite interesting, and I don't know how to even begin to analyze that one.
How can you not get caught? What do you do?
I don't know. It's like this. It's like it depends on how do you what do you do, right? And how do you do it, and what exactly are you claiming and doing, right? That's the question. I just can't imagine it because it's like we're so highly vetted. It's like I've been fingerprinted so damn many times.
Exactly.
I fingerprint myself at the police station.
Yeah.
I'm a trustee. That's like because I can do it more efficiently than if you trying to roll my fingers around. It's like very weird. But it's like more scrutinized than anybody and it's like I can't imagine it would be very easy to slide through. And it's like, but it depends on what claim are you making with that credential, right? And what are you trying to accomplish? And how is it benefiting you to falsely label yourself in such a fashion. So that's the question, because it's like I can't imagine you get a job because there's too many cross checks and it's
Yeah.
just
I just can't see how it. Well, it's like one thing to say, how could you get the job? Another to say, how could you survive in the job? What do you do? Say,
do anything. Yeah, yeah.
how do you not get caught? I mean, I guess you could basically bring people in and decide whether it was two aspirin and call me in the morning or referral. I mean, I guess you could play that game. I mean, but I can't.
But you still have to know, you have to have some basic working knowledge of the system from the inside to be able to
To do that.
function, even
Yes.
in that limited capacity.
So, it's like when people say that, or I'm not, I think lawyering should be done by apprenticing rather than apprenticing and testing rather than I don't see any value in I mean, because I've worked on this over the past week. Is it there are basically idiots' guides to the law for 99% of law. The idiot's guide, there's
Sufficient.
and an apprenticeship is enough, right? That's really enough. I'm not really sure what law school does other than make it easier for better law firms to hire top candidates. I think that's probably all the only value they have.
Yeah.
But I mean, but I do think there needs to be some guarantee, because you're saying you're taking on responsibility for very serious outcomes for your um, client. And it's the same thing for doctors. You're taking on a very serious responsibility on behalf of the individual. And it's less so for financial people, but it's still, but there's a limit. It's like they make us licensed hairdressers.
Right.
Right. Well, the reason they do is because people get pissed when they get bad haircuts. Right. But I mean, so there's a actual, I mean, if you got a bad haircut and it fixed in 3 days, we wouldn't have licensing hairdressers. But the fact that it might, you might cause somebody a year and a half of being pissed off every time they look in the mirror, right? They're going to license hairdressers. I mean, it's just how much responsibility over how much time at what accumulated costs is a license, basically saying we're insuring you against we're not ensuring this person is competent. We're ensuring that this person is not so incompetent that it's going to harm you, right? Well, that goes up with the risk, and doctors are at the top, right? I mean, that's military guys are up there somewhere too, but I mean,
Oh yeah.
right? So you want to have those kind of things, but I mean, by and large, I just can't. How doctors is the one thing I'm like, I don't get how you fucked that up. I mean, how do you fake that? It's like, I mean, I can even get today where people can fake flying a 747. Now they think they can, right? But the difference between a simulator and doing the real thing is non-trivial, because it's actually feeling.
Yeah.
I could sort of get how you could get away with that if you took regular flying lessons on any kind of plane. You start to get it. I mean, the performance characteristics of planes are different, but I mean, how do you get to be a doctor and survive and that by fraud? I mean, I just don't get it. It's amazing to me, and it's not that it happens all the time, but it does happen, and it surprises me.
All right.
Now, I was actually going somewhere with this. Now, let's
Yes.
talk about a social scientist who uses surveys that confirm a bias without falsifying against the data from more advanced sources that are collected indirectly instead of directly, and who have no knowledge of the causal relations of neurological differences between sexes, classes, genders, and whatever. So you need to know psychology and a little neurology, right? And so I'm like, so the problem is, what's the falsification of this bimbo with her PhD? There's none. And I'm like, so why do you have a PhD? You don't have a PhD. I don't know what you have.
It resembles a PhD though, doesn't it?
It's a fucking church. What do you call it?
Oh,
Indulgence from the church.
yes, indulgences. Yes.
And it's like, it's different too. Like if you get I see this in math. You get an advanced math degree, and who do I know that's quite competent? There's a guy. He's fairly. high up at Wesleyan University. And this guy's a Marxist, but his math is really good. Like he actually understands the foundations of math. But the same logic he applies to math, he can't apply to Marxism, which is hysterical to me.
That is
Right?
just very amusing.
But the number, like I was listening to what philosopher was I listening to? Putnam. I was trying to fall asleep last night. I couldn't fall asleep. So I put on this lecture by Putnam, which is Hillary Putnam is a great philosopher, but he will put you to sleep. Actually, most of these guys will put you to sleep. If I don't put you to sleep, Putnam will definitely put you to sleep. Anyway, so I'm listening to Putnam, like, what planet are you from, dude? I mean, he's like criticizing, the Rorities, which is true, right? I mean, his criticism is true, but then his explanation is like, well, I mean, you're still missing the mark, dude, by quite a bit.
What's interesting to me is Lindsay and his company were producing fake papers for these fake magazines at ad nauseum. They were just cranking them out, and it's like he said, once you figure out the pattern, it's easy. And but it's the same thing. It's like absolutely without any basis whatsoever, just a lark. And they were able to pull it off, and it's like, well, that tells you all you need to know.
Well, great thing. What if you were required to get published, right? To in other words, if you publish something, right, then you're warrantying it.
Right.
You can warranty different things. You can say, I warranty only that this person is who he says it is, but right. But what are you warrantying on this publication? Just like if I produce this coffee cup, and I don't get a choice whether to warranty whether that glaze will kill.
Oh, right.
Right. I don't. You don't get it if you publish something. You don't get a choice as to whether you warranty the truth or falsehood of the statements in there, or at least that you perform sufficient due diligence. What I'd like to see is, of course, because I'm a falsificationist, what I'd like to see is what competing research disagrees with one of my findings.
Right.
I don't want to see your cites that justify your findings. I probably know them anyway, right? But right. I'd like to see them because I might want to go back and say, well, you made this statement. How is he getting to that conclusion? Right. But the real truth, you know what the truth of cites is? There's a way an author, a philosopher, a scientist thinks. Once you understand that basic system of thought, it doesn't. What you really need to do is just cite the author. Like I could just cite Hayek or Rothbard. It doesn't matter where they say it, because their premise is trivial, right? The system of logic they depend on is just well, if you understand that system of thought, and if you don't understand that system of thought, why are you fucking quoting them? I mean, I just don't understand why you'd even cite them if it's clear that you don't understand how the first principles by which they came to the conclusion that they listed. Well, that's different when you're talking about, well, hydrogen and oxygen, when they move together and this much carbon produce, then you can move leftward or right under pressure. I mean, there's, the chemistry is like mechanics, right? I mean, it's just, right. So, but, you get into this situation where I don't care so much about the sites. I care about the conflicting information. I want to know what you didn't consider. So in something like this woman's field, which is political opinion, right? This is not like we don't have some of the best statisticians living who ever lived.
Yeah.
Deeply involved in this, right? Deeply involved in this. And it's these aren't opinions anymore. Their problem isn't interpretation of data. Their problem is getting data, because people have started lying.
Right.
They used to tell the truth to a survey producer.
Oh.
Right. While there's always in survey data, there's always been virtue signaling. So you can figure that out by the difference between the reported data and the demonstrated data, right, of voting. So you can say, okay, we've got to account for this much difference among these demographics, whatever, because these people virtue signal more. But now people just fucking lie or don't answer the phone.
Right. Now, my attitude has been for quite some time to automatically lie.
Yes.
Because I'm not interested in participating, and I want to mess you up.
So what's happened is the problem with the people who are really good at this, like the big firms and the individuals, because there's actually that breakup. There are big firms that are really very good, and there's some individuals that are, it's like math, right? They're just stellar at predicting these things, right? Like Nate Silver, right? I mean, you can listen to him, but all you have to know is what's the trend that people are lying about in this subject, and he can't accommodate for it because it's getting so bad.
Okay.
Right. And so he'll still be off. He's like, but the data says this and the trend says this, but the rate at which people are, this lie system is spreading through the polity is different. So then you get people, like Pew Research. I mean, I can trust almost everything they say.
Mm.
I mean, and if they're even say, but we can't tell X, right? We can't determine X. When you come out and you say, well, this is true and that's true, and it's justifying an existential narrative, and you have no falsificationary process in place to limit, and you've actually done everything possible to create a system where people will self-report according to the intentions you're inserting into the process. I mean,
seems like
why is that even legal?
Yeah, I just the surveyors appear to me to be crooked, which is why I won't be truthful with them, because I'm like this. I don't believe that they're actually doing anything, and I quit even answering them. I just am not participating.
Well, remember, there's classes of survey takers.
Yeah.
The people who work for the campaigns, they're programming you.
Right.
And minor variations in how a question is asked produce vast differences in the output of the distribution of the answers. But there are people who are actually trying. It's like when you take any especially personality test, which is what I'm familiar with the most, is you have to produce a consistent answer that's reframed.
Right. Right. Multiple ways to ask the same question.
The same question that it isn't obvious that they're asking the same question, right? And so most of us will turn out that we won't be entirely consistent because our auto association. Well, they right. Look for the things. What are people going to be inconsistent about, and how do I ask the question to produce this outcome? So there's people who are producing paid results, and there are people who are paid for the results.
Yes.
Right? And so if Pew Research does it, I'm pretty certain it's good. It's like web surveys. Well, what the fuck does that mean? They don't mean anything, right? They don't tell you anything.
No.
They're basically Me Too signals for whatever origin is or whoever's originating the thing.
That's right.
So it's just, and then when they get down to voting, you realize these people are right down almost to the household level where they know how someone's going to vote. I mean, it's very statistically clear by neighborhood. And so that's why you find certain places targeted,
right,
with a lot of money, is because that's the only place decisions can be
influenced, right?
So it's like I'm actually trying to make a point here, believe it or not. So I go to was it Rolf Degen's website page, because he basically reviews every one of these funny things that comes out there. He doesn't review. He posts the summaries, the abstracts, and a little sentence or two about all this stuff that gets published. And so what I do is, for like self-testing, I'll go through and I'll say, can I do a constructive proof of this survey? Right? Just from the abstract. Right. And I'll do like 20 at a time. Right? It's like for some people want to do crosswords. For me, that's the same thing. Can I do constructive proof? And I'm like, well, yeah, because it's this simple. Well, you don't realize that how much of this stuff is noise.
Right.
And then it gets caught. It's student quality research with too small a sample size. Right. Injecting an outcome rather than looking for one, then caught in science news because it'll generate clicks and spread out into the population. oh, that's pollution of the informational commons, right? And you say, I have a right. No, I don't. You have a right to do whatever you want, but it's not clear you have a right to say whatever you want. That's clear because we can't rail fire in a theater, right? That's the test.
Right.
Well, what's the truth? The difference? The answer is, well, so we have freedom of speech. Well, you have freedom of truthful speech. You don't have freedom of deceitful speech. Well, I mean, a lot of this stuff is they're saying, well, this is not judgeable. Well, it is judgeable. I mean, that's the whole point. It's either reciprocal or it's not. It's testifiable or it's not. Right? You followed the scientific method or you're fraudulently claiming that you did. And so
Right.
it's possible to outlaw all of this shit, which would, of course, shrink the grad school down to like 1% of what it is today. Right. And we get rid of all this credentialism and the fake sciences. What would happen is people be forced into going to the hard sciences if they wanted a career, which is the only place we really want them. Anyway, so it's not impossible to stop all this fucking lying. But I mean, these people believe their fucking lies. Why? Because they don't think. They only feel.
It feels right.
She keeps
Doesn't
calling
feel like
this,
a lot.
and this woman keeps calling me misogynist. I'm like, are you fucking crazy? My problem would be I love women too much because they're wonderful, right? I mean, I'm on the wrong side of the misogynist thing. I'm on the right side of don't say stupid shit, right? And I'm sorry.
Oh my.
You don't go through wives and girlfriends, right? I mean, I'm not one of those guys who is very hyper attractive to women, whatever. But I've certainly gone through my share, and it's like not because I don't think women are awesome. It's because I think they're fucking awesome, right? But it's like I don't think a kindergartner should vote in elections, and I don't, and I think about a third of men shouldn't. The problem is 2/3 of women shouldn't, right? And for the same fucking reasons. So I mean, that's just a normal distribution problem. Sorry, Fuck. You're an oppressive massage. No, just stop lying. If you tell the truth, then we can come to an arrangement. We can negotiate a reciprocal contract, right? For mutual benefit. But if you're fucking lying, you're just lying to steal. And that's all there is to it. Because the only reason to lie is to steal. Sorry.
Sounds right.
That's it. I mean, why are you lying otherwise? Now, your stealing might be minor, like you're trying to inflate your self-image.
That's right.
Because your neuroticism is too driven by internal self-doubt, right? Okay, well, you're lying about yourself. On an interpersonal basis, I can ignore that, right? Because it's not scalable.
That's right.
Right. And so now if you start saying if you're lying about your competency, okay, now we have a fucking problem. If you're lying about a competency in the judgment of things beyond your perception, cognition, expertise, and abilities, then you're harming.
Yes.
Right. So, I mean, this is the difference between manners, right? Direct, like I can judge you as being a little bit off, right? Ethics, which is, okay, now you're causing me a harm, and morality, now you're exporting a harm into the commons. I mean, that's the difference between manners, ethics, and morals, right? I can test you. Ethics, interpersonal. In other words, I can test you and walk away. Ethics, now it's possible for you to produce a harm, and morality is when you put harm into the commons.
Yeah. So scale dependent.
It's skill dependent. So I mean, so you say, well, I can ignore you, I can afford to do business with you, but now how do I stop you from harming the commons? We have to restrain you. Right. And I can see, so this is the problem. We can't have freedom of religion, freedom of speech, we have and freedom of conspiracy. Because you can't have freedom to conspire, freedom to lie and defraud, and freedom to undermine. That's what those two things. You can't have those freedoms because they can't. They're not reciprocities, and the only thing that can be a freedom is a reciprocity.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's another one of those clips that probably needs to get
We do that.
put
That's
out.
what, just to help them out. All right. That was a good warm up.
Well, it is. It's just along the lines of, I'm still bound by the fact that I have demonstrated competency, but in the rest of life, but in my intellectual pursuits until I published, I'm still attackable by ad hominem for not for not having published, which
It's
makes
it's underminable by ad hominem.
yeah, it can be undermined by ad hominem. And the second thing is, well, it's not like the average idiot's going to understand this very quickly. It's a big program, right? I mean, it's not easy, so it's going to take social proof. It's going to take publication, distribution, learning, and social proof in order for it to be defensible. So
it is the defense of the thesis is its survivability over time.
yes.
Well, it's a fascinating thing. So I was like looking for that word praxiometry that you found for me, and I want to thank you for that because I was very disturbed because I had written it on a 3x5 card and I cleaned up my hovel here, and it's still a mess, but it cleaned it up to sufficiently where I eliminated the evidence of it, and I was like, oh, that was truly disturbing. And but what struck me, because I went through the notebooks, I keep notebooks, and I'm on my third one since maybe 4-5 months ago, and no, maybe 8 months ago. But it's like I looked through all of them too because I'm like I must have written it in there somewhere. So I looked through them because I keep all the notes, and it's amazing how much that I could have forgotten that I made that word up, and that I couldn't recreate it despite looking through my notes. I'm like, we have done a lot of things.
Well, that's it. Is that like we covered something on August 22nd that I'd forgotten about already. It's
Wow.
it's only what 2 weeks, 1 week. Oh, it's not even 2 weeks ago, and I
Yeah.
forgot about it already. I'm going through the video. I'm like, oh, we covered that. Right. I mean, you look at and then now you go back, and if you go back to the stuff we did on the method, which is the introduction of the book and right up until the first principles, that shit's really fucking. I mean, the amount of shit we covered is amazing, right? But it's like I was going over this myself in my head last night because again I couldn't sleep last night. And it's going over in my head, and I'm like, all the first principles I can probably cite, right? But it's not easy. Like I have to think about them,
Right.
right? So, and I wrote them, right?
Right.
And I worked on some of them for years, like reciprocity I can do. Truth I still have to think about a little bit. First principle, the grammars I can do, right? Right.
Right.
Sort of, right? The falsehoods I can, the crimes I can, the falsehoods I can't, right? The first principles I'll absolutely miss some, or without having a visual record.
Right. You.
Right. And if you get into the law, the properties that are of a law that is the result of all this, I can't do it at all. And I'm like, so it's like, it's like, okay, well, then you take all those first principles we've just discussed and talk about all the ways we've discussed each of those first principles. And it's like, well, and somebody's saying to me, well, somebody's criticizing me for our videos the other day. And I'm like, it's not like these are classes, right? This is a working session where Brad and I try to basically hold what you would consider a seminar, talking through basic ideas to make sure the book is going to
that we're on track.
And I'm like, if you try to follow that, I mean, it's a 4-year fucking problem. I mean, look at the guys that follow us, right? They work. It's work for them. You get some like Dave, what's his name? Said something the other day. I'm like, I'm surprised at the progress of guys, but this is really hard. So I'm like, you're not gonna, it's like, well, I did a statistical analysis, factor analysis of 37 people who we brought in for a survey and asked them these 10 questions. I'm like, Okay, if you brought in over 1,000 people and you asked 600 multi questions from given for where you have at least n dimensions of tests against every factor you're trying to attribute. Right. All right, and when it's 1,000 people that have been randomly selected, right, and you realize that people are very different. If you ask them, do you like chocolate, how do you what is 1 and 1 and 2, 1 plus 1, right? These are this is very important insight. What is this logic puzzle, and what is this moral, what is the moral or right thing to do, and then what is that moral right thing to do with this scale under these conditions, right? You're talking about a pretty big difference. Now you start asking, what are the things they don't know, given that, or which of these is true about some economic or socio-political or something, whatever. Right. Of course, you start asking things that aren't counterintuitive. They're going to, but it's only at that weird end that sex differences show up. Now, it's going to show up in the middle, verbal versus mechanical. That shows up everywhere in life, right? I mean, the obvious joke that your wife can't operate the VCR, right? I mean, turns out to be true. Or change your oil, right? I mean, it's not that women can't. It's just that it just doesn't show up on the radar of things she needs to work. She's going to ever think.
She's not going to be interested in it.
Whereas a guy is, right? Because it's going to bother him. He doesn't understand how this machine works, right? Until he understands it. So but you get up into higher mathematics, and you realize that women do it by pictures and words, and then men do it by systems and models. And then you realize then what went wrong, and you start looking at fields and why they separate that way. It's okay, this is just sex differences up here. Well, it's because this is how the fuck can you have a sex difference at 1 and 1 equals 2? I mean, there's just no way to have that. I don't know if there's a sex difference in chocolate versus just as vanilla. I assume there is. I'm sure somebody knows.
Right? Wait. That's a good cue for them to leave comments below. Tell us what you know.
So anyway, so that's a long way of saying we got to finish this goddamn book.
Yes, sir. We agree again. Boring. All right, you going to share your screen now?
Well, I don't want to make the audience dizzy.
Oh, I see. That was kind of you. You do have medicines for that. For your information. Some of them are available over the counter, Dramamine.
My mom I used to get car sick, so my mom would give me Dramamine.
Right.
This is going to take me a moment. Do you want me to pause it?
Yeah, that would be okay.
We're back, freshly armed.
Ready to go.
Okay, so we took a break there so that I could
it's navigational.
Find out where we were left off. All right. So can I switch over to the screen now?
Yes. There we go.
You see female.
Yes.
My asthma is not liking something. Must be the
That's nice. That's good.
All right. Okay. So what we said is let's take this is a working page. This page, because I made this page so that I could produce these grids, and then we'll move the grids into place. So this particular grid is the sex differences in grammars, use of grammars. What we were working on is influencing versus argument, right? We went into empathizing versus systematizing. And then we went into evasion, and then into undermining. And I think we went into war, conspiracy, and then war action. Okay, now I got it in my head. All right. And then we've made the loop back to harm. So, I think we're done here, Brad. I think that's what we came to the conclusion of last time.
This looks pretty solid.
This is solid. Because we got, and I did this one. Escalation phases. Yeah. And we've already got this diagram. And I've extended this freaking nightmare. That one's going to kill me. Okay. So I think there is nothing to be done here that needs you and I to go over.
Okay.
I should have remembered that. Why did I have it in my head? Oh, I remember I confused you with this one because I moved it. I created a diagram out from the center instead of right. So I confused. Does that make sense?
Yes, because it's all bad behaviors.
Right. So I was afraid I had confused you with that one, but that it's just the organization would mean that these are bad behaviors all going outward, right?
Right.
That's great. This one's right. This one, oh, come on, damn it. This one's right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the working pages. I'm just gonna make sure I save that. All right. So, okay, we get to do fun stuff now. You ready?
Okay.
Says, Kurt, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. Tell me what you're doing.
Strapped in.
All right. So it's here somewhere. I know. I think this is it. This is it. Yeah, I know what that one is. Okay. First question. Let me see if I can find it. Hello. Wrong one. We could put you on and listen to you talk, Brad. I'm missing a page here. Let me go over it one more time. That's the important one. And this is it. Okay. So we're going to go to here. And we're going to go to, oh, you can see this, right? The Constitution.
Right.
So we have the preamble, right? This is the problem statement. And we have man. These are the first principles of man. Right? So these are the first principles of man, right? And before man, we have nature. Now, and then after man, we have rule of law, rule of cooperation, right? So we have this Constitution all laid out and there is stuff that has to go into man, into these pieces, right? But this is mostly policy. The science is right here: nature, man, rule of law, rights, obligations, and alienation. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Now we also have the law. Hello. Whoops, the science, which I haven't put in here, which I have to go this way. Hello, are you going to give me? Here we go. And so we have things figured out like, what's the program, right? We have things like, gross anatomy of the nervous system. And this stuff is over in, I have to share a different thing here. I have to show the desktop instead. Still see gross anatomy of the nervous system?
Yes.
So then we have to go here. And we have, hello. What's the problem here? Some scenes that crashed. Anyway, program, we always cover the program, right? The method, the logics. All right, we got all the logics, vocabulary, the method, stories. And then we go into the grammars, right? Just remind you.
Yep.
How much we've covered. And we get into stuff. I wish I could find out where that is. And then we start with first principles, right?
Okay.
Right. So that stuff has to be brought over here.
Okay.
Right. Bring that stuff over here.
So operationally speaking, I'm trying to understand the operation is to we're preparing this work for publication.
Right. If we finish lying, we're done with the work that was left to do.
Okay.
Lying was the last. Remember, you took me through. I can't remember because you've made me do so much extra work that I've forgotten the list of extra work you've made me do. You don't feel guilty at all.
I feel for you, brother.
You don't know. I know you. I know.
It's empathizing.
Yeah. Okay. So we had to, what we got to is we said, well, okay, we have to disambiguate sex differences
right.
And so we finished that, but that was the last thing. So we're sort of done with all the, now we've got to make the book, everything in the book.
Right.
So, what question am I asking? Okay. I'm asking 3 different questions. I don't want to, and I'll get through it. Okay. All right. So here's the book, right?
Yes.
All this stuff. And most of this stuff is either in here.
Yes.
Right? It's outlined in here, and textually, it's all over the place up there.
Okay.
Right? So, I mean, there's this, because, this doesn't have everything in it, right? If I click on political elites, it's empty. But how much stuff do we have on political elites? I mean,
right.
Pages and pages and pages. So It's, I mean, I don't think I have anything in here on this stuff. Right? Well, I just have notes.
So
So
what's the operation that you're conducting then? Is to consolidate that material into one location?
into here.
Here is this website.
Right, because it's the easiest thing for me to work with. There's this much text and content. It doesn't, it keeps basically every page is a separate database entry,
Right.
and it keeps all the versions. And the
Yes.
same thing with all the images. So it's very hard to lose things.
Yes.
And every other system I've tried,
Yes.
I lose content. And once you combine that with the search criteria that's available here, and the ability to arrange things. And when you look at it, you get a fair idea what the page is actually going to look like. It's
Okay.
just hard to beat working with this system so much that so it's become my default work model. It's not like I don't have literally every other major
Right.
authoring tool. It's that it just turns out that for safety, like I love Scrivener, right? I mean, I love this tool, Scrivener, writing Scrivener. I love it for writing scripts. I loved it writing stories. But the fact is that for writing nonfiction of this scale, I mean, if I lose a Scrivener file, it's fucking gone. If I lose a Word file, it's gone. And it's like I hardly ever lose anything here.
Okay.
So and some of the stuff is hard for me to recreate. So I've just, this thing is backed up every night. I don't have
Yes.
to do anything, right? And it's
So
also, if I were to go edit this page, right?
yeah.
Let me just show you what happened. Open new window, right? So if you,
Okay. I
right,
see. Yeah. Yeah.
if I go to edit that page, I don't have it open right now.
Okay.
All right, let me see if I can see it.
So the question I have is this is so the you're going to put them all into this form, Scrivener.
No, this is just the website.
Oh, okay. So you're going to put them all in there, and then you're going to contact the publisher.
Well, I'm gonna have to ask the guys to do a little review of it. But yes, he's to basically
Okay. Yeah.
you you deal with the publisher. You start negotiating with the publisher after that. Yes. It's just an awful lot of stuff. So all that work of moving stuff in and turning it from what it is into hello
Right. Right.
uh into prose. Here's one. Right. If you turn it into prose, and then you go through the prose and say how, this is what I said. This is an undone marker.
Right.
Fix the undone. Well, you can turn this into prose. It's just a little work to turn it into prose. But that's not the hard work. What's happened every time I've gone through this before is I get to like this point and I'm like, fuck, I don't know the answer to that. Right. And then I have to go work on it. And so what the thing is now is we've done everything. There's nothing left.
Right.
So and there's way more in this than is necessary to get in the document, which is my next question. Right. So you have, for example, this contains what not only right through the law, what went wrong, what are the consequences, and what do we need to do, what are the reforms, the Constitution, and then the history of the conflict, right, and then what's our choice, right? So I have, and then the prosecution, right, and so I have more than one book here.
Yes.
Right. And so, but I just need to get it all into this one format so that we can submit it for publication. And it's not, it, between that, I mean, you can't see this. Well, where's the book? Let me open the book. I don't bury my computer's memory by doing this. Oh no, there's a problem with Word. Wait. Oh no, I gotta shut this before I lose my computer. Force quit. Word for some reason wants to open up 1,000 copies of
That's a problem.
let me just see if I can find it here. Documents. That's it. 2.6, version 2.6. Open with Microsoft Word. Okay, let's just see if it tries the same stupid thing with me this time. Yes, it does. Wait a minute, did it stop? Yes, it did stop. Okay, good. Okay, so can you see that?
Yes.
All right, so this is the last draft. So there's a lot in this draft.
Right.
Right, this is huge. So there's sort of like, I mean, I'm not going to go through it. It's hundreds of pages, right? So
right.
Yeah. So I have sources. We have this outline, which is what we want. We have the working model, which is the slides, right? Which you and I worked on.
Right.
And then we have the previous draft, which is in Word. And I've got to bring all that over there, right, in a condensed form. So the art is, how do we do that? And here's the thing is, I have another Brad question.
Uh-oh.
And I don't know if you can answer this as quickly as I'd like to. Let me just close a few things here.
Of course.
Let me just quit this. I've got to save a bunch of things that don't want to be that are recovered files. Sorry. See, I only have these recovered files for one reason, because Word crashes.
Yep. Very bad.
And so I can't trust it with this stuff. And I've had Word crash. I've had and lose a month of work. I've had Scrivener crash and lose a couple days worth. Excuse me, not a month, a couple days worth of work. Scrivener crash. The only thing that I don't lose work on is this. So, so where am I? All right, so let's talk about it. So we have this outline, right? Right. Can you see the program, right?
Yes.
I hope I'm not driving you crazy.
No, I'm just I'm letting you process and waiting for the question I'm supposed to answer.
Okay. We can put out posters.
Right.
We can put out the summary. That's this.
Okay. Right.
That summary would include where is it? Oh, there's the outline, but where's this one?
Okay.
In other words, that's the summary of the general principles here. So we can put out the posters, which is just a list. We can put out the summary. We can put out the Constitution, which really a duplicate, right?
Right.
Or we can put out the book, or all of the above.
Okay.
Right. So my gut wants me to put out the book. Right. My intuition says, see, my gut, the thing I feel fulfilled out is the book comes out with the whole thing. My instinct, though, or my intuition is, we can reduce everything. Where is it? We can reduce everything into the Constitution.
Okay.
Let me see if I can find that again. So this science, where is it? We can put the first principles here of this. We can put the first principles of man here. We can put, right?
Yep.
We can put the first principles of European civilization after man.
Right.
We can put the first principles of rule of law by the natural law after that. And the first principles of rights, obligations, and alienations after that. And the first principles of government after that. We could then put the first principles of law. The problem is law, logic, and grammars.
Okay.
And how you frame that. Law, logic, grammars, etc. My feeling, so here's where I'm going. So that's actually the science. The rest of this stuff is the organization of the state and the policies within the state.
Right.
So it's possible to put everything into legal form. The problem would be that you're really, all right, so here's this. If we say we want you to pass a scientific constitution of natural law, right? Boom. There are multiple parts to that constitution. Is the science, right? There is the organization of the state, the process, and then there are the policies, right? That's the three sections. The rest of it's whether you want to demand prosecution, restitution, punishment, and so on, right? And that's another issue. But let's just say we're trying to deal with the science and the Constitution first.
A positive functionality of the ramifications of this scientific expression.
Right. And so, when I get overwhelmed by the book, it's because I think about all the text the explanatory text I have to write. Versus when I look at the Constitution, it's declarative text.
That's right.
Right. And so I'm like, well, is that really necessary then? In other words, is the explanatory text necessary, or is just the law enough, the Constitution enough? If the Constitution is fully broken onto its parts of what is law, What is the government we choose to implement on Earth? What are the policies we choose to implement within the government?
I
So
would.
go ahead. I'm just trying to get your feel for it because the other alternative is to just summarize in the Constitution and then have the book essentially be you have to basically say the book is part of the Constitution. Does that make sense?
The book is the justification, is the foundational element of it. It's like the Constitution in this framing is the architect's diagram.
Yeah.
It's just real basic measurements and how the measurements work together and what the ramifications are, what it looks like on paper when
So the
you.
Constitution is a reduction of the book.
Yeah, and the book is like this voluptuously fleshed out. Well, it's one of the two hot models that the painter had you
Okay.
paint.
Okay. So here's what I end up with. I'm like, I don't want the introduction to the law to be a book. I want it to be just declarations.
Right.
Okay, that makes sense. So then that will make sense to me. I was really trying to get out of work, see if I could get out of work there, but your answer is no.
But it's like this. It's like the issue is not that you get out of work, but that you break the work up in a manner that causes it to be satisfactory, like a multi-course dinner or something like that. Because you're like, okay, it's dessert and coffee and main course and appetizer properly spaced out in a manner that is allows you to move through all the pieces of the work of it and be satisfied with how it's turning out. That you don't feel overwhelmed is important. You have to feel like you're engaged in it at the cusp of your competency with the chaos that is associated with it and organizing it in a manageable way that makes you feel like you're accomplishing something so that you can continue to do it again tomorrow.
Yep. Okay, well, there goes my attempt to save myself some work.
I'm never good for that, am I?
No, you always give me more work. You're the fucking problem is you're always right. It's like pissing me off.
It's ask my wife about it. She knows it's irritating.
I wonder how many writers say it to their editors.
I don't know.
I think most of them just
the first time I've ever had this role, so I just
fuck. Okay. So then how do we work on this together? Can we? I mean, our chit chats are very valuable. But what I think I have to do, I mean, I guess we could go over and move all the data over together, right? That would work. It's the actual writing. I mean, I just would feel bad if I made you sit here and we had to write fucking paragraph by paragraph together. It would probably be better if we did that, but
it's a lot of paragraphs.
That's a lot of paragraphs. But we can move the data over together and then make notes, right?
Yes.
So we have the book, the Constitution, the summaries. I mean, maybe the poster is just a summary. Yes. I like the summary because I don't know. I use the summary.
right?
If I use it, I
Everyone will
gotta
find it
assume.
useful.
I think I gotta assume everybody else would find it useful because you don't because we want to go through all this psychological stuff, right? We have to cover it, and we have to go through these details because we're defending ourselves, right?
That's right.
But I don't need that for anything substantive, right? I mean, like the ternary logic of cooperation. That's fucking. It's just like 20 things, right? I mean, we've already done this. It was like 20 triangles, whatever. And each one of those, that's a pretty easy thing, right? Just list the ternary logic of it.
Right.
The European civilization, we just list the ternary logic of European civilization. We list the ternary logic of the law.
Right.
We list the ternary logic of the grammars. I mean, it's just these things are just like, I mean, what's the difference between the summary and the poster? There isn't any. The poster is just a summary. So I mean, it's the same fucking thing, right? I mean, maybe without the explanatory paragraph. Because what you want to have in your head is you have these basic first principles, and you have these series like evil, immoral, unethical, amoral, ethical, moral, virtuous, right? I mean, that's the most common one we use, but there's a bunch of those standard measurements.
Right.
But I mean, if you have those standard measurements, the ternary logic of things, the only detailed shit is the lying. Lying is exasperating. I mean, it's like a full. That's like a year course in the study of lies. That sucks.
I have found it to be quite more detailed than I expected, to be honest.
Okay, so we're done with content. Now we've got to move over. To move over will involve setting it up so we're moving from the slide deck and the text document in, right? And then that should give us and the way we want to organize it is we want to have a diagram, right? A picture. We want to have the first principle, the definitions, and then the argument.
Yeah.
Right? That's I mean, it's almost like we're writing a glossary.
It's pretty straightforward in my mind. It's just it's like each thing is like a caliper, and it's just here's the measurement tool.
Yep.
Here's how it works.
So it's really someday if I have enough alcohol, and I'm sure it's not going to get around, I'll show you one of the early drafts. And it was sounded really good when I first wrote it. But compared to where we are now, holy shit. All right. I can set that up and make that happen.
All right.
So I
Did
think
we answer the question?
What?
Did we answer the question?
Yeah, we answered the question of all the possible choices Kurt put forward. Brad said pick the hardest one.
Yeah. Sorry. Nothing new under the sun.
Well, let's just play with it a bit because I know you're right. But so I feel it's necessary to put the laws of nature in after the preamble. It needs to go nature, man, Europeans, rule of law, government, right? Rule of law, rule by law, right? Or rule by concurrency, or we have to call it something more descriptive. It's commonality and concurrency.
Yes.
Rule by sovereignty by concurrency, sovereignty by concurrency.
It's interesting. It's like that. It's like that. So there's a sovereignty before, during, after function there.
Yes. It's like group. It's like groups. The group remains sovereign by the grant of individual sovereignty, by insurance of self-determination by self-determined means, which is the same thing as sovereignty.
Yeah.
Right? By sovereignty and demonstrated interest, reciprocity, and display word and deed, limiting us to markets and everything, and we're market to demonstrate interests. Right? I mean, that's right. It. I mean, that's.
But the interesting function of it is sovereignty, concurrency, and commonality in that order. It's like
I think it's
before, during, after.
Self-determination,
sovereignty,
concurrency, commonality.
Concurrency is current, and then commonality comes after.
Well, it's a via negativa, right? I mean,
that's
we can go bottom up or top down.
But it's evolved. It's the evolved function.
Yes.
Commonality evolves out of the circumstance.
Correct.
That's all. And I'm like, it's just interesting. We're on track. Just slow steady.
Do you ever get? I get this feeling every once in a while. So can I whine for a second? You let me. Okay. You usually let me whine. It's therapeutic. But I mean, it's like I feel like I can't associate with normal people anymore because they make me so frustrated. But it's like what we know from this work is so far beyond what they can know that it's not fair to be frustrated by them. Oh no,
it's like you don't get frustrated when you're sitting at the kids' table, man. You just don't expect a whole lot to come out of the conversation.
Except the kids are running with scissors, and
you have to stop them when they're doing that. That's silly.
I mean, that's the problem, is that they're running with political scissors.
Right, and a responsible mother would stop them.
Yes.
So that's all. That's where we're at, and it's like, okay, so we just have to train up the adults that can handle the information. And it's just grandpa is coming around and making the map so that the young adults can pick up on it and begin to emulate the information in their actions.
Funny, Braden said something like that the other day. I said, I don't know if I should bother talking to these people, And it's like, no, but they were listening, right? I mean, maybe
that's all it takes.
And I'm like, he's like, no, you understand, they've been raised in a world without fathers, and you're providing fathers.
That's nice.
Well, I mean, I just never thought of it that way. Is that people don't have access. I mean, men of competency used to be fairly evenly distributed.
Yes.
And they aren't anymore.
No, they're concentrated and isolated and then denigrated.
And they just ignore. I mean, that's what happened to our elite, Anglo-Saxons elites, right? They just gave up. They just gave up. They gave up trying. They just happy to be have their money and power.
They're not trying to. They're not doing their noblesse oblige.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's like it used like. I remember when we were talking. I can't remember when we were talking about this, but it used to be that if you were wealthy, you drove around and you were proud of it. You drove around in the chauffeur. But so I remember somebody telling me when the DuPonts gave up using chauffeurs.
Yes.
And I'm like, I don't like that. I want to know. I mean, I don't know why it is. I want to know. In other words, why do I not have envy of somebody who has attained wealth through commerce,
Right.
or nobility through intergenerational production of a good family. I mean, I don't know why would I feel envious?
Right.
I just don't get the envy. And I don't know why I'm wired that it just doesn't bother me. I like a king and queen, right? Why? It's
I don't have
because
an answer for that. It's like, because it's like this is,
I don't look at nobility as being smarter than I am. But the truth is, the English nobility was more moral than all the rest of the nobility. Now, they did that by accident, but it happened, right? I don't have any problem with aristocracy nobility unless they're rent seeking,
right.
right? And so if you're not rent seeking and you've done stuff, I'm like, okay, then just show me. Let's post how much tax money you generated,
Right.
how many jobs you generated, how many people work for you. How, let's show that, because it's not the government that's doing it. The government's just suppressing the irreciprocity so you can.
That's right.
I don't know. I just
That's
don't.
right.
It's something I've never understood, how people are envious. This is, well, they're no better than I am. Well, I mean, obviously are. But what do you mean by better?
Well, it's like this. It's like the issue is interesting because it's like they fixate on the money, and the money is the derivative of the difference,
Yes,
is not the cause of the difference.
correct.
And it's like, so they don't understand math well enough to just to they're just crazy people.
That, and
Children.
like, he inherited the money. You know how hard it is to keep money in a family more than 3 generations, or even for 3 generations. It's damn near impossible. If they do that and they're not in a criminal organization, right? Which is an if,
Say no more.
right?
That'll get this banned in a minute.
And then they're obviously better. It's really hard unless you make it your job to preserve wealth over generations, because it's very hard for every generation to be as equally competent in new circumstances
That's right.
at generating and maintaining wealth. Wealth is hard to maintain. Yeah, I say this all the time, but I remember what Todd Colby said to me: the average person has no idea how hard you work versus how hard they work. They can't. They
That's
can't.
right. They
They
just
can't.
look at it as hours.
Yeah, they can't imagine. They can't even imagine like it's possible to work that hard. Right? I mean, there are people I look at them. I mean, the great public example is what's his name, Musk.
Right.
I mean, I used to be able to do that when I was 25. He's not 25 anymore, and he still does it. And I'm like, I'm sorry, he's smarter than I am, right? He can work harder than I am, and the evidence is there. And he's more personable than I am. So, I mean, it's you can't. Most people can't do that. I remember this really talented guy worked for me. His name's Trevor, and he would burn out by 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's it. He was like,
Wow.
it would just burn out. He would be really competent from 8 to noon, come back from lunch and get it, but that's
So
it.
winding down.
That's it. And it was like he was open about it. Now I'm just right. But you know what it's like to, I mean, at least for me, I mean, I remember going to work at 8 at my company, going over to Microsoft and working till 4 in the morning, repeating that process. I mean, it's with only a couple hours, 4 months, right? Now you can do that when you're 25, 28, 30, but you can't do that. But the problem is most people can't do that. They
That's
can't
right.
they can't concentrate. Most people we have great data on this. They have like a 25-minute frustration cycle. It's like there's a 7-minute barrier and there's a 25. It's probably a 3. It's going to be another 3-minute thing, three heartbeats, like 3 minutes of heartbeats, right? 3 minutes, because a heartbeat's roughly a second, right? So 3 minutes of heartbeats, 3 minutes of, right? And it's probably some multiple threes that turn out to be the frustration cycle. But after 20 minutes, and certainly after 50, people can't stop. But some of us, I mean, fuck, I've I had to have when I was younger, it's like I needed to be if I didn't have a wife or somebody to make
To
sure
be
I ate,
to
I'd
control
die at
how.
the keyboard working. Allura used to come in and like literally drag me to bed, and I'd fight her because the dopamine didn't want me to stop working. Right. So I mean, they can't imagine how hard it is. I mean, I look at guys who have a lot of money, right, in
Yeah,
business, not in finance, not in because
yeah,
if I
yeah,
want to play the finance game, I would. It's just I just don't like it. Right? But I mean, not in government, not in finance, but in commerce, right? Any kind of business, especially technology or engineering.
right.
Those people. Who's the Russian oligarch that has the big yacht that's in trouble all the time?
Don't know his
I want
name.
to say Abramovich, but that's not. Um, that fucking guy, he can work basically 24 hours a day. Bill Clinton was like that. He needs 4 hours of sleep, and he can work competently the rest of the day. Right? People. That's why. That's the difference between us. And they think it's just money. It's not just money. Well, people, it's just credentials. No, because credentials will not carry you anywhere, right? That doesn't. I mean, it's like that. What you get in college, sortition in college, is largely by your work capacity, and that's what gets you into Harvard or Yale or whatever it is. Is your work capacity without flaw, without error, or as we say, the real purpose of college is to prove you can do homework, right? Which is truer than I really want to admit.
I found it to be upsetting.
Yes. So anyway, I'm dragging this on.
Doing all right.
People
Another
just
day.
people. I just don't understand the end. That's what I was summarized. I don't understand the envy of like. Would you want to be president? Really?
No.
Would you want to be the president of Microsoft or Google or Facebook? Not in a million fucking years. You know what that you live that job, and there's nothing else in your life. And people say, well, he's off on this yacht. Well, that's because it's the only way to get away from people, right? And they actually can't get to you, right? I mean, it was bad enough for me. I run $100 million company, not $100 billion company, right? I run $100 million. I have to pay secretaries to keep people away from me, just so that I can just to filter
Function.
things. I mean, you look at some of these oligarchs, and it's. I follow one of the guys who follows super yachts.
Yeah.
He's fascinating, and he's describing what it's like working on these things. It's like, well, the guy has his wife and whatever, maybe his mistress and whatever. But the problem is the real reason he's on the yacht is to get the fuck away from people, so he can actually be human. And even then, he can't be.
Yeah. What a
Just
weird thing. It's like, talk about it's an insular function, right?
it's just horrible. It's like, and some guys, they love it. You know why? Because they love the human interaction. That's the difference. Is the human interaction doesn't bother them, and their memories are really good. Their memories are good enough to remember figures over time. And if you have those two abilities, and you don't get tired about it, I mean, I can process data, but people make me tired.
Yeah.
And some of these guys, they can process data. They can remember last year's data, or at least vaguely remember last year's data in the same balance sheet, right? And they like talking to people about it.
Right.
They like the puzzle.
Right. It's like, to me, the function is, does it energize you is the question. And
Yes,
it's like they get energy out of it.
yes, they
As
love it.
opposed to get drained by it.
Exactly. Like one of the things you notice is they like the feeling of that we would call it dominance expression, but that's a negative word. But
Yes.
it's more of like success. I did it. 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 Right. That feeling is really rewarding. And if you're in a position where you have all these people and they're facilitating bringing problems to you that are
Soluble.
that are soluble, it's just you get this wonderful feeling of I did it, I did it, I did it, I did it, I did it. And then there's this occasional thing of like, fuck no, I don't know. Right. Then what you do is you call everybody and talk to them and
Figure it out.
and you figure it out. And because you can decide, okay, the decision gets made. You know what the real truth is? The decisions are marginal. In other words, they don't matter. Those decisions, the reason you can't decide them is because the information isn't there to decide. So you just take the risk. And the reason you get to take the risk is you're the one with the money to absorb, right? That's it. So I just don't get the envy. Why do
No, I just it's envy is it's a cardinal sin.
Yeah.
And it's weaponized is the issue by people who wish to overturn this social structure that naturally evolves.
Yes.
And so it's like it's an evil function.
I can see if those people disrespect you.
Oh yes.
No. If someone disrespects me and my values from that position, I can sort of get that. So if they like they're Protestant and I'm Catholic and say anti-Catholic, they're anti-Catholic. But I'm going to dislike them because they're in a power position to disrespect my.
That's right. To cause, yes.
But
yes.
it's not just their wealth or their success, because it's fucking hard to be like that. It's really hard to do it. I mean, I don't want to mention their name. In Seattle, there's a German family that's been rich for forever, right? And so basically it's a corporation and everybody has to put in, right? And I can't remember how many people. I mean, I have a connection to them because like everything else, you got to fix things sometimes, right? So you look at them and, well, they just hold the investment and they don't give it away.
Right.
But you still get dividends and stuff. But if you, the more you add to it, the more dividends you get, right? It's just a business that happens to be on the behalf of family members as shareholders, but those shareholders still have to contribute. They can't just extract. Well, look at my own family. Is my great grandfather was quite wealthy, right? And he put the shit away so nobody could touch it, right? So even I got inheritance like 3 generations later. I think it's all gone. I don't know if it's all gone now. It might be distributed now. It might have been distributed by my father's generation. But I mean that was my great grandfather, my grandfather, my father's generation of mine. That's 4 generations. And if you go back before that, what I've discovered is the Industrial Revolution kind of fucked over these wealthy New England farmers. Right? The Industrial Revolution came in, and your wealthy New England farm between 1850 and 1915, right? All of a sudden, the industrialization of farming drove the profitability
just wiped them out, huh?
To the floor. And so instead of being this fancy guy with this fancy estate and this whole and these workers and stuff, right? Because they didn't have slaves. You all of a sudden have to go find a real work, and it's funny, even in my family, who's not exactly working class, right. We went through a shift there. Of course, they went into construction, right? So they built factories in New Britain, right? During the Industrial Revolution in Britain, and so it's funny he's called a mason, and he's not a fucking mason. All right. But right, he's in the masonry business, right, which is building factories. So right, but there's a couple generations there where these families go through it. So it's just shit just happens. It's very hard. You look at Italy, it's the same fucking people running Florence that run it in 1400. I mean, that's the one everybody cites. But look at Denmark; it's the most unequal country. Everybody wants to get Denmark. Well, of course they do, but it's also the most unequal country in the world. Why? Is because the same fucking people in Denmark have been running the guy. Well, why do you think it's Denmark? Because the same fucking people have been running forever, and there's no bad shit that's happened, right? It's like, why is England England? Well, it's because the same fucking people have been running it for 1,000 years, and it turns out that that's a good thing, right? Because you know why? It's really hard to be competent enough to have the same people run something for a very long time.
That's right.
You have to do a lot of things right for intergenerational transfer of wealth. It's who's bringing, oh, this is one of Martin's favorite topics right now, is the Anakarinita problem, right? Is like the Anakarinita problem is that a lot of things can go right because if any one of them goes wrong, it fails. So all Anakarinita is all happy families are the same and all unhappy families are different. It's because a lot of things have to be right to have a happy family, but any one of a number of things can be wrong to make an unhappy family.
That's right.
So Martin's, I went through this phase, the same phase he is recognizing how universal a law that was. I don't know, that was back in the 90s, I think. Like, God damn, this is like a Pareto problem. The Anacarita, we call it.
It is. It's totally Pareto problem.
It's a Pareto problem. And like, God damn it. But it's the opposite, right? A Pareto problem is it's got to end up this way because there's no other way to organize people. And the Pareto problem is it's going to break this way because it takes multidimensional things for anything to survive, for any multidimensional factors to keep anything successful over a long period of time. In other words, you can't stay at a Pareto optimum. A family can't be the top of a Pareto hierarchy unless a lot of things continue to go right always. All right, I'm talking your ear off now. And we know what we're going to do now.
We have a plan.
And you sure you're okay with sitting through that?
I'm okay. We'll see what happens. So just keep on programming.
We're getting down to writing the actual.
I know. I'm here for the duration, sir.
Well, I know, but you're like slave driving me now. We got to get this thing out the door.
It's like this. It's like it needs to be accomplished.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It needs to be accomplished. And it's like, what does it take to get it accomplished? That's all.
Well, it's this.
And here we are. And it's, we got to talk about Anakarinita problem. That was cool.
We solved the hard problem today, which is I can't get the easy way out. I got to do it.
There's no easy button for this.
There's no easy button for this, and it's okay because we're going to go through it. We're going to get a template for how to produce a thing, and we're going to just work on the piece, and we'll discover how do we say that, and that'll bother us for 20 minutes, and then we'll move on. And the thing is, we don't have to write 50 pages on these topics.
Right.
It's really just diagram, definitions, right, and descriptions.
Very good.
Because we just represent everything as really going to try to get as much in the ternary logic model as possible.
Right.
So that it is easiest to remember.
That's right.
All right, brother. Thank you.
All right. Well, it's a pleasure, and I'll look forward to chatting with you again.
Like, subscribe, click the bell, whatever, comment.
Yeah, you.
Yeah. Make fun of me. I don't care.
That's what that part's for.
Make fun of me. Appreciate Dr. Brad. That's
very kind.
That's part of the ritual.
Is that how it
guys?
Is? Bye. See you, Kurt.